Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So it's been a good minute since I've done anything to the IS250. So in today's video, we'll go ahead and wrap the steering wheel I have right here with a new leather wrap. So that way I have a fresh new steering wheel on my IS250. So stay tuned. For most of you that are putting this wrap on the vehicle, you could go ahead and just do it in the car and just stitch it all around, kind of tuck all the stuff around here. But I always like to take it out and kind of do it on the bench. That way I could take all the parts off, do the wrap, do everything nice and tight off the vehicle, and then put it back in. In order to do that, you got to actually remove the steering wheel, the airbag, and all this stuff from the car. So that's pretty easy if you have the right tools to do it all. So for the 2IS, the airbag is held on by two Torx bits. I think they're T25 Torx bits on either side. So you have to pop this cover right here, and then on the other side, you pop the cover that's right around the stock for the cruise control. You take both of those off, and then you could take the Torx bits out. When you unscrew them, you don't even have to take them out. They actually have a retainer, and they stay in the actual steering wheel. So you just unbolt it, and then you just slide the airbag right off. So once you unbolt that, you could just go ahead and just pop the steering wheel off, and it comes off pretty easily right there. And then you got these two plugs right here you got to pop. So there's actually a yellow connector on top of here that you pop out, and these things come right out. So I'm about to go ahead and use both hands to take this thing out. Once you get the airbag out, the next thing you want to do is just unplug this harness from the clock spring right here. There's two of them that you want to take out. And then this one, which for the airbag, you kind of leave it in there. Once you take the steering wheel out, it just stays in there. And then you want to need a 19mm right here to loosen the center bolt. And if you have a puller, that's probably the best way. You use a puller with these two screw holes right here to pop the thing out. That's the easiest way. Else, if you don't have a puller, you could try to bang on the side of the steering wheel until it loosens. So right here we got the steering wheel out, so we can work on it off the car. But like I said, you guys can do this on the car. I actually have a spare steering wheel that I got from the junkyard that I'm gonna be doing this wrap on, so I can actually save my original one, since this one is still in pretty decent condition. I mean, it's got the normal wear from about 17 years worth of use so far. And just over here, some oxidation from the sun exposure, but overall it's still in good condition for the age of the car. But I want to use a junkyard steering wheel to do my wrap on. So this one right here I picked up at the junkyard for about $17. They're very cheap at the junkyard, and they're very easy to find. Just find the ones that are the best condition as you can. One of the things you want to look for is the one with minimal rot to the original leather, because you're just going to wrap over this original leather. So you want to make sure it's as smooth and clean as possible. So you could shop around on the different IS250s or 350s that you find in the junkyard until you find the one that you want and like. The instructions basically have you do it on the car. The one advantage of doing it on the car, it's on a stable surface. You get more leverage to sew things through and kind of do all that, but then it's hard to get behind these little plastics. So one of the things I usually do is take apart all these plastics. They pretty much clip off right here, these little clips, and they pull right off the back side. On this particular one, we also have the paddle shifters that you can take apart just to get them out of the way while you're wrapping it also, especially if you're just doing it to your existing steering wheel. I don't want to do my existing steering wheel because my steering wheel is still pretty much mint and I want to save that one. And for $17 from the junkyard, I'd rather just experiment on this one. So I usually order these leather kits on Amazon, on eBay, or even AliExpress, where I got this one. But this one is pretty much, I paid a little bit extra for the real leather. If you look around, they have PU leather, which is basically vinyl, and they have real genuine leather. So you want to make sure you get what you pay for and what you want as far as the wrap goes. It comes with a little tool to help you tuck around the edges, but we won't need that. It comes with this tape right here to tape to here and stick it to here. In the past, I actually opted not to use that, and I use basically 3M90 adhesive. But what I found is anytime I didn't use this tape, this thing's kind of start rolling inside when you are using it, especially on a hot day. You could kind of rotate it. So I've actually switched to actually using this and a lot of it now, just to prevent that from happening. And my particular one comes with thread and needle inside this little bag. The kit I ordered was actually white thread, and it comes with the white stitching thread. I decided, since I have red and also blue for my previous ones, I'm gonna go ahead and do like a white and blue combination. Before I get started on this one, I sprayed it down with super clean just to clean up all this old leather. Look at all this nasty crap from the super clean that just brought all the dirt to the surface of this leather. We'll go ahead and wipe this thing clean so we have a nice surface to wrap. Now that we got everything cleaned up on this thing, we'll go ahead and start wrapping it. So one of the things you want to do is get this thing out, get it in the right orientation to match up with all the edges, and kind of just get it all in place. Then you want to use some of that adhesive tape, put it along the flat edges all throughout here on the back side, just to keep it from rolling and keeps everything sticking once you get it onto there. Alright, once you wrap it around here, the easiest way is to try to line up the seams. These seams pretty much line up exactly on where the OEM one is, so you want to line those up. And then you want to double check how far forward or backwards you have it by just seeing to make sure this thing covers over that. Once you do that, you can start putting that tape along this edge, along here, and just anywhere where you can get the tape in, just to start sealing it down. Alright, I went ahead and put that tape in there so you can see. I had to put it on the front side as well as the back side here, just to make sure we got a good solid spot to tape this thing down as we put the threads through and tighten it up. Alright, I did this little first section right here. I started on the time lapse, but I just went ahead and messed around with it kind of off camera, but I got it all the way through. So I'll go ahead and continue around on a time lapse, and I'll stop as I get done. But as you can see, it's kind of raggedy and jagged looking the way I did this, but over time that's going to kind of straighten out and kind of fix itself. But hopefully it starts to look better when we get all the way around. But that's pretty much it. You want to make sure you match up perfectly across from one side to the other, so everything lines up when you hit this seam right here. The next thing I do before I proceed, I'm going to use this 3M90 right here. This adhesive right here I've been using for 26 years on all my car projects. I use this usually to stick upholstery or carpet to make speaker boxes and all that, and this stuff's really legit and it works really well. But I'm going to use this to kind of spray around this area right here where it starts to lift, because that tape that I put down, once it tapes down and you peel it back, it just takes the back of this leather off. So I'm gonna just put a little bit of it around these edges as I go, along with the tape, just to make sure everything sticks and adheres as I stitch through this thing. One of the things I learned from doing this side, what you want to do is make sure you line up these stitches right here, the seam, and then count how many of these things go all the way back, and then also count on the back side and match it up, because for this particular kit, all these stitches don't match one for one on the back side, so I had to mess around with it over here just to get it perfect. So I want to make sure all the way around, especially over here on the long one, I catch that first before I end up propagating the error all the way around. So I got this thing all bolted up. Be careful when you use this adhesive right here. Spray it on and let it dry and get tacky. What I did, I sprayed it on, it was still wet, and I laid this thing down, and it actually separated the little bit of leather from the backing here, so there's sort of a bubble. I try to get back in and get some more adhesive to stick, but just be careful with that. But yeah, just go ahead and get it all the way around, get the things to line up, and to get a good nice tension so you get the nice even look on it. So we'll go ahead and just finish thing up all the way around. Again, if you're going to spray that adhesive and use it like I did, just spray it, let it dry till it's tacky, and then just kind of let it naturally stick when you do this. Alright, so I ended up finishing the top loop right here. What I ended up doing was I ended up changing my stitching back to the normal just crisscross stitching, which made it a lot quicker and easier, because the way I was initially doing it earlier when I was showing you guys, it just got too hard and it wasn't pulling it tight enough. Plus this leather I got was a little bit too big around this area, so it was giving a bunch of loose stuff. So you can see how I had to pull it really tight along this edge here on both sides just to get it to fit tight around that spot. Even over here I'm not 100% yet, so I'm gonna have to make this a little bit tighter and maybe even stitch it into this back part that ends up being covered by the plastic. But yeah, definitely was a lot of work to kind of redo some of this. So I did that. So I went ahead and redid this bottom section right here to that same crisscross. I have to go ahead and finish this side and take all this out and redo it on this one. That's the initial one I did with the crisscrossing along the seams right there, which didn't pull it as tight. But definitely this wrap that I got was a little bit lower quality than some of the other ones I've had in the past, just because they didn't have it trimmed or stitched around and getting a good tight fit. So like right here, you can see that loose area, you can see this loose, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and redo all this to pull those things tight and make sure I glue it all down before I do the final stitches. Alright, got everything back together. I put the panel back on the back side just to make sure everything tucked back in correctly. On the back side, you want to make sure this thing all tucks there, tucks down here. So overall, I think this is a 5 out of 10 in my opinion. I'm kind of OCD on all these little details, and that little area here, this is kind of my fault for messing that up, for putting too much adhesive. So yeah, don't overdo the adhesive because it's going to kind of delaminate that leather right there. But other than that, I think up here I was not 100% happy, because yeah, this definitely was way too big as far as the way they cut it and sewed it, and I had to kind of wrap it and make it as tight as I could so the front looks good. Right there, you can't even tell, but when you go to the back, that's where it's kind of sucks right here. You know, there's little bubbles and all that, and over time that's just probably going to annoy me. But as far as you guys doing it yourself and trying to do this, most people would probably be happy with this, considering their steering wheel is probably garbage at this point. but for me, I'm just a little bit OCD. I might end up getting another junkyard one and just get a better wrap. You know, not all the ones on AliExpress where I got these are made the same, so I'll probably stick with a brand that I used to, the Me Want brand. It's a little bit more expensive, but at least I know it fits very well because I've used it in the past. Overall, I'm gonna go ahead and just install it on the car and use it for now, but I'll probably eventually just sell this thing and make another one. So inside here, we'll go ahead and swap everything over to the new steering wheel. You'll notice right here, I've got this dampener right here. If you guys didn't know, this is out of the ISF, and it's an upgrade for your 2ISs, your 250s and your 350s, because they don't come with these. So this is a very cheap part. I remember way back in the day when I bought this, it was probably like 15-20 bucks for this and the screws, but it just kind of helps dampens the steering wheel. If you saw one of my early videos on the channel, I actually showed you how to upgrade these. It was a pretty straightforward install. Just kind of unbolt it, take it out, and put it back on. Just the hardest part is taking out the airbag. So right now, so you see we have both the steering wheel, the original one right here that I took out, and the new one that I wrapped with the junkyard steering wheel. I'm still not happy with that, as I mentioned earlier, but we'll go ahead and run with it for now. So next thing I need to do is basically just swap all my parts over from this steering wheel over to there. My junkyard steering wheel came with this plastic in the back shifters, but I know my car is much less miles on it and less use, so I'm gonna just transfer all my parts over and just keep those as spares. Alright, so if you're doing the same method as I'm doing, just make sure that once you guys get everything on, like the back cover and everything, make sure you tuck all the leather and everything underneath the panels before you tighten everything up. That way it looks OEM as possible, especially down here and all around the edges. Alright, overall we got everything back in, routed all the wires correctly. Make sure you tuck everything away. All these different wires kind of go in a spot on here, so just make sure they're all tucked into there, along with that dampener and everything put back on and tightened down. So we'll go ahead and reinstall this now. So if you did it my method, you want to make sure before you took it off to make sure the wheel was perfectly straight. I confirmed that before I pulled it off, that the wheel was level with everything. So I'm gonna put the new wheel back in just the same exact way, so that way it's not off or crooked or anything. Alright, once we put it back in here, make sure everything's plugged up, all this stuff's plugged up. We want to torque this thing to 37 foot-pounds before we put the airbag back on. So I'm going to go ahead, grab my torque wrench, take care of that, and put the airbag back in. There we have it, guys. It turned out pretty decent, except for those spots right there, like I kept on mentioning. It looks like over here we're getting a little bit of delamination too, but definitely not the best quality as far as the leather wrap I got from AliExpress. But overall, you know, like I said, like a 5 out of 10 in my opinion. probably a 9 out of 10 for most other people, but these things like here just kind of annoy me too much. But if it wasn't really for that, everything else would have been okay. Even the sides right here that didn't fit too well because they were too big, at least it got pretty tight looking right here. I could still feel it on the back side, that the looseness around the edges here and the corners, but for most people that's probably not a big deal. But again, I'm used to having it nice and tight, so definitely I would spend a little bit more next time to get a better quality one, or try other ones out before I settle. Hey guys, thanks for joining me on this video on upgrading the leather wrap for my steering wheel for my IS250. As you can see, I've been working on it for actually several days, just a couple hours at a time, just to get everything right and perfect. Even though it didn't turn out like I liked it, it gives you an idea of what it takes to do this project and how much patience you have to actually use. If you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to your channel, go ahead and subscribe to your channel. Turn on bell notifications to get notified every time I upload a video. For all these different projects, if I can do it, you can do it. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys next time.